Good morning, friends. David Wright here, and I'm your host of the Disruptive Innovators Champions of Digital Business podcast. And today I am lucky enough to be joined by a former podcast host, my friend Louise Doorn. Louise, pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, David. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So Louise, for any of our listeners who may not be familiar with you, I know you've held a number of roles, worked with a number of different really exciting companies over the years. Would you mind just introducing yourself and your current role?
Yes. So I'm currently in my third startup, and it's called CoachNova, coachnova.ai. And we really want to augment human executive and leadership coaches to really thrive in the AI first space. And there is a lot of growth in that market, but it's also very unattainable. It's quite expensive. And as a lot of knowledge workers are currently using ChatGPT and the other chatbots, which are actually not coaching. They are, tools that can be useful. But in order to really grow your career, which I've been able to do with executive coaches for 15 years, I thought, hey, there is an opportunity here to augment the humans in order to do really meaningful and needed work in this, very, I will also say, Bana and FUCA world. It's changing a lot and it's quite volatile and sometimes chaotic. So having somebody in, not only in front of you, but also in your pocket, I think is a nice combi. So we thought together with my co-founder, let's try to get this off the ground.
Yeah, I could definitely see the efficacy in it. So, I don't think I would have started the podcast if it weren't for my business coach. Among other, strategies and things that I've done in the career, some of which have been some of the best decisions that I've ever made. So a huge proponent of that. And I'm excited to get into that. For anything, we do like to start each episode with just a piece of actionable advice. So if there was only one, and I'm sure there'll be at least a few, but if there's only one piece of actionable advice you might look to leave everyone with today, what might that be?
I would say my background is in marketing. I've been a chief marketing officer with multiple startups. I've held executive roles at JP Morgan, Samsung, and Philips. So I've been able to lead a lot in my career and from a creative and strategic perspective. And then going into my startup space, which has been here for 8 years and had some good success there. I'm actually now in the space where I really, and Rich, you have already, work with AI agents as your team members first. So from the get-go, we're really build up this organization from October onwards. So it's still very new, but together with my awesome co-founder and CTO, we actually met at a cloud coach cohort in Lisbon, where I live part of the year. And right now I'm in my happy place on a Greek island. So I live between those two places with Starlink. It's amazing. And I lived in New York for 10 years. So and I still miss it. But if I want to have my New York, shot of energy, I'll just go there usually for like twice a year for 3 weeks. I went to Lisbon after New York in October, and I went to the first cloud code cohort, met my co-founder there. And we immediately started to build a digital knowledge garden for ourselves. Like, what do you know? What kind of, because if you had a career of 20 years, and I'm sure you might have done the same, you accumulate so much wisdom and so much failures and so much knowledge, but it always is in your heart and your head. And particularly when you lead a company, there is a lot of sometimes people that pull towards you, but you cannot scale yourself, right? Unless you're going to work 100 hours a week, but I don't advise anybody that. But now you have this tremendous opportunity to build your own digital knowledge garden where other people can start talking to it when you're not in the room. So that's really, I think, in combination with cloud code and agentic first company, I think that's a game changer. And I think really on the other side of that is really investing in our development. It's so easy these days to be distracted and really look on the outside of what success looked like. But I think at the end, I grew the most when I really looked inside. And it's not always easy, but this is also why I like to spend some time on the Greek islands, because I'm in nature. It's easy life, it's simple life, but this is really where I feel grounded, and meditate and do things like that, and build a community around that. I think having those things are all possible for everybody right now. I think you can build companies from anywhere. So I think it's exciting time to be alive.
I agree. Love what you guys are doing. I mean, we're building out something similar in that myself, a couple of my colleagues with 20, 30 years experience in this industry will find ourselves over the course of particularly like an implementation or like oversight of something like that, coming up with multiple kind of anecdotal things over the course of a meeting, like, oh, we have to make sure to do this, or oh, we slipped and fell on our face doing that, like, got to avoid that. And it got to the point as we wanted these younger guys and gals to oversee those projects so that we could work on other things. How are we arming them with the knowledge that they could then, offer that? So we're in the midst actually of building kind of this thing called the Insights module, which serves up product specific, time specific references that they can pull from and also kind of chat with. And so, similar concept, but different. And then, in regard to what you said just about the personal work, I was dropping off a new colleague. We hired a new guy on Monday, and he came to New York. He's out of Virginia, so he was at the home office for the week, and I was driving him to LaGuardia, and he was like, we're chatting, and well, A, he was happy about the decision, so that was a good thing to come work for us, and B, I started talking to him. I forget exactly how about. And I've probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but the biggest strides in my business career I've found were per result of the work that I did on myself more personally than from any type of business sense. Like the business knowledge accumulated because I was driven and persistent and I wanted to learn. I've always wanted to just learn as much as possible. So that was always on its own track. But for a long time, I was driven by fear, and I was always kind of like, and you might not see it on the outside, but
Yeah.
because I could be very selfless seemingly, but I was so self-absorbed because it was
Mhm.
about me getting what I thought I needed or not losing what I had already gained. And especially in New York, and I have this conversation with people all
Mhm.
the time about how some people have this perception of New Yorkers as like cold or distant or whatever. It's really because like in New York, it's so expensive. It's so cutthroat that like you really have to be locked in. And in retro, like in take in and it happened in a moment of strife where I was like, we don't need to get into all of that, right? But like I was uh in the shit, right? I was like in the muck personally, not professionally really, like everything was kind of fine professionally, but I was really at a bottom, and I had to make some decisions of like things to look at, people to work with on some other stuff. And I did, and coming out of that and getting that fear in check and now being more present in my life, right? Has business skyrocketed. I mean, that next year we did 4x revenue. This year we're going to double in size. It's amazing. And it's almost like the more detached I was from myself, like the more I got myself out of the way and just was of service in the world. And yeah, it just, the more success we found. And that wasn't the reason for it per se. It was just happy happy result of it all. So I just resonate with what you're saying is all.
It's
Um,
great to hear, and thanks for sharing, David.
absolutely. And I'm curious now, like, so, you mentioned early on kind of some of the positions that you've held over time, obviously multiple startups. Um, is there a time that sticks out in your mind that you either had a project fail or you were kind of down, but ultimately you took away one of those shifts in perspective or kind of anything of the like that you still carry with you today?
Great question. Yeah, I think it was in 2016. I was living in New York for 5 years at the time, and I was part of a scale up. It was supposed to go IPO, and I joined, from JP Morgan. So it was a big step, going into a company like that. But we raised 60 mil, supposed to go IPO. I thought, hey, this is great. Equity first kind of in my package, because I thought, hey, this could be like a really good, like life-changing money. And then
Right.
that didn't happen. So you're kind of sitting in like an illiquid asset almost on your plate. And then I thought, okay, I wasn't like, super interested to stay. So I left. But it was scary because you mentioned earlier, in like New York is a lot of your identity is defined around, where you work.
Right.
And if you don't work anywhere, they just think you're a trust fund or you're a bum, basically.
Right.
But I was neither. So then so that was scary. Luckily, my partner had a good job, and you know, I kind of said, okay, I'm gonna take a year to kind of you know, figure out what I do, work with, a coach as well. And but also just kind of traveled. I wanted to kind of just not like immediately have like another answer to it. I wanted the answer to come to me. And then I just
Yes.
got
Love that.
introduced to really interesting people. And, I did some angel investing, and I really got into a different, social fabric in the city, which I really enjoyed. And actually uh, looking back, that year actually was also financially very rewarding. I mean, it took about, I would say, 5 to 10 years to get there because that takes time. But I really enjoyed it. And it also kind of planted the seed that, I fit as a human better in entrepreneurial environments, risk taking, doing stuff that because I tend to kind of, you know, look a little bit ahead of what things are, where things are going. And
It,
I wanted to kind of capitalize on that. And when you work in a like busy job or you're CEO of a startup, you don't always have time for those kind of things. So I thought it was amazing to have that. And actually last year I did the same. After my second company, I took a year off and traveled for 4 months and just went to I went to Bhutan, I went to Papua New Guinea, and I did also like my bucket list of things I still wanted to see, and it was amazing. And then this whole idea for CoachNova.ai came up, and I kind of feel it's important to give yourself some space to do those things, and they don't always have to
and
be super expensive. They can be, of course, but I think a lot of people don't give themselves the time to do that. And I think it's only one life. Give yourself some space to explore and play.
yeah, it reminds me of the significance of one of the tools that I find myself using today and being able to pause and take a breath and be comfortable not needing to fill the air with my voice or take that next action because in reaction to something that's happening, right? Um,
Mm.
I think particularly as a type A personality and somebody who wants to like get shit done and like all of that, what in younger, I'd have a tendency to just like go and need to figure it out. And what I've found nowadays is that oftentimes if I get that email and I feel uncomfortable because it's an uncomfortable situation, or I have a phone call with someone and it's uncomfortable, or whatever the situation is, the best solution for me is often to pause, breathe. Sometimes I'll forget to breathe and then walk away or just take a minute. Maybe have a conversation with a trusted colleague or friend or advisor. Spend a day. What I've found is that most things don't require me to respond in that moment. or even necessarily in that day. So let me take a step. And I know that you're talking more about like these kind of moments in time where like took more than a day, obviously, right? But I identify with that kind of motion of letting things kind of come to you. And I've had some of my best ideas myself when I've been on a beach, kind of disconnected for a bit and just like not reeling in the day to day, but almost like kind of being like, okay, what's next, right? Like, what do we see? Like, what's coming? Like, what could be, right? And so that's cool that you afforded yourself the opportunity to do that for sure. What about I'm curious, favorite book or literary piece, either that you've read recently or all time? Your choice.
Not easy because I love reading. Well, I'm a sailor, and I read this book recently. I think it was called A Marriage at Sea, and it's from a
Marriages.
couple. It's a couple that from the UK that sailed around the world in, I think, like 25, 30 years ago. So it was not with like any satellite phones or Starlink on your boat. And
Wow.
they shipwrecked in French Polynesia. Um, and they were just sitting in their
Awful.
life raft for like 3 or 4 weeks. And
My
eventually they
God.
got picked up and they got into a media frenzy. And so the super stark contrast between like almost dying and losing a lot of weight and trying to salvage your marriage literally at sea to like becoming this
Wow.
instant media like thing. So that wasn't very, I love that book. It's very much around, also, I guess, inner development and appreciating, what you have and make the most of it, even though it's very dire, but also survival and resilience. And then how do you come out of that on the other end when you're rescued? But what are you rescued from? It's a very philosophical book as well, but also a fun adventure, like crazy adventure, but like it really happened.
Wow. That's wild. I'm sending a link to my colleague Alistair, that's Dr. Erskine. He's a sailor as well. And so I'm like, hey, have you heard of this? Sounds really intriguing. I actually had there's an episode a few episodes back. We had a friend on, and uh, he sailed starting in it may have been Portugal. Trying to remember exactly where it was, but I mean, he started. Yeah, it may have been Portugal. Well, anyway, and he sailed all the way around like to the Atlantic Ocean, but they go, I guess, down along the coast of Europe, and then they like come up the South American coast or something. It's a whole like they make sure, I guess, you're not like so far from land, it seems, but you're far enough out where you don't see it, I guess. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
but
if you go from
anyway,
Portugal to, yeah, you have to cross the Atlantic. That's like a 20-day to 30-day trip on a boat. Yeah.
right. And he was saying just like, I mean, luckily they did not shipwreck. And these sailboats were massive. Like they had crews. It was here it is. Month-long journey across the Atlantic Ocean in the Clipper race. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and so
I know that one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Brano Gentile. He was at Heineken and a bunch of other places, but as CIO. Um, but just the resilience and like so to be out there as two people with nothing stranded on a
Yeah.
dinghy. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. So I'm gonna check that out. And good to know you're a sailor. My grandfather was a sailor. I never really had the opportunity to get into it, but um, on my vision board, so to speak, is a house in in New Jersey on the water there, in
Mhm.
like Lavalette or something like that. And I'd like to, as a kid, I used to go down to the Brielle boat basin. My grandmother lived in Brielle, and I would get on all the ships there, go like deep sea fishing for the day, and I loved the boats and everything. So that's on my bucket list of a sailboat. So
Yeah, I can really recommend getting on a boat. It's just, it's so freeing. And
it is.
particularly, when you're type A and, you lead a company, I think laying on the beach is probably where I mean, at least after a day, I get super bored. But then if you're sailing, at least you have something to do. You can use your brain,
Right.
and you can shift your own schedule. And you need to be a good team with the people on the boat. But then you get to places like I sailed a lot in the Caribbean when I lived in New York. And yeah, I mean, just anchoring in front of some bars or things like that. I mean, or the Grenadines. I mean, it's just
Where
great,
did
but you
you
never
where
have to.
did you where did you sail from to get to St. Bart's?
Oh, I just flew to San Martin and then I picked up the charter boat. And then within a day sailing, you're in St. Bart's or Andila or, St. Lucia. Oh, no, not St. Lucia.
That's
That's a
so
bit, a little
cool.
bit further down. Yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's the best because you don't need to make a reservation for a hotel. You just think like, oh, this sounds like a fun anchorage. It looks protected. Let's spend the night here. And the sea
Wow.
says the sunrise yeah, it's I think the best thing ever. But it requires planning. It requires some knowledge and
Right.
particularly some guts. But at the end, I think everybody can do it. I see 75-year-old people solo navigating or like in a couple navigating the globe still. If you know what you're doing, then it's not that difficult. Particularly now with all the technology. I mean, you can have Starlink on board and like have video calls when you're in the middle of the ocean. So
Right.
yeah, it's a crazy world.
Crazy, crazy world. So anyway, I digress, right? So Louise, so now you've co-founded this company. Talk to me a little bit more about the vision for Coach Nova, kind of where you are today and the trajectory of the company, and maybe some of the either like key initiatives you're working on or like how you're working to scale the company at the moment. I'm interested to know more.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so basically I was in New York in October last year at Columbia at the AI and coaching conference. Prior to that, I interviewed over 70 coaches, over I think 11 countries because I really wanted to understand the target audience and
Right.
really understand, like, is this a problem that they think it's worth solving? And yeah, the answer was yes. And I got excited as well. And then I wanted to get the confirmation going to Colombia, and I got super excited. And then I flew to Portugal and got into the cloud code cohort. And yeah, since then we kind of built an MVP basically within 2 months. It was like a busy Christmas and holiday period, but and we had quite a few coaches that I interviewed that were interested. So we started this early adopter group and they started to use the platform for free for the first 3 months. So we ended that MVP stage, I think 2-3 weeks ago. And yeah, really good feedback. Also very good ideas on the product roadmap. And we really made this very like co-creation with all these coaches
So
and with
so
us.
the coaches use the product as a supplementary tool to support their clients.
Correct. Yeah.
Got
So
it.
basically how it works is that you have most leadership and executive coaches, coach via Zoom or some other kind of online
Yep.
environment, even though they can also do it offline and sit in an office. But basically, we build like our own note taker. The note taker then transcribes the session and turns that into session notes, which are highly like prompted, very extensive prompt engineering to make sure it's 100% focused on leadership and executive coaching, including also ICF and EMCCs. Those are kind of the two, governing bodies worldwide on like certification of coaching and accreditation. So we feed that into the prompt, and then we kind of build on top of that the signature of the coach itself. We distill it from all the sessions. And then you have specific for each of your clients, your coachees. You have like another kind of separate entity where all that data is stored. So we are an EU company, and this is very intentional because we could have done a Delaware company, of course, but we really wanted to adhere to the
GDPR.
GDPR and privacy and the EU AI Act. So Laura in our team is a privacy lawyer with like 25 years of experience, and she really built also a trust center, because trust is so important. That's the only thing that matters in coaching, is you probably experience yourself. So you want to make sure that everything that you put in a digital space is locked, and that is like feels safe for both the coach and the coachee to partake in. And then what we built is kind of a messaging interface, because some of the coaches use like WhatsApp in between, but WhatsApp is owned by Meta and you never know what happens with the data. So we wanted to build something that is, safe. And so we just basically build our own kind of environment that is only accessible via password login. And but actually what's really exciting is we do a lot of pattern recognition across all the coaches, so we can kind of see, what is the efficacy of each coach across type of clients, which is really interesting for corporate sponsored programs, which is a big part of this coaching industry. And then once you have the digital twin built, you can actually extend your coaching session. So we're working with a bunch of coaches actually in New York that they are actually testing right now our extension product, which means that you can have your coach's chatbot that is trained only on your sessions and only on your goals. And you can continue to chat with that in between your sessions, but also beyond your sessions. And it opens up kind of a subscription business. We call it kind of a premium gym, but then for the brain and your personal development. And that means that you can also offer coaching in different modalities. It's not only selling the hours, it's actually maybe selling less hours, but more the brain. And then you can also have different price points. You can address a different market and maybe not sell it for like a package of $5,000, but maybe you can do like less in-person sessions, but then more twin, still with the same person.
Ultimately the digital twin, I can interact with the same way I would interact with my I was going to say therapist, because I've been down that road more lately than my business coach, but with my business coach asynchronously even.
Correct. Yeah. So you can do already messaging. So basically, let's say I'm your coach, you're my coachee. We had a session. I get the notes. I share the notes with you. All the commitments are in there. So you kind of know what to do between the sessions, which is also handy, because at the end, you have to do the work yourself. But then you sometimes get stuck and you would like to start sending a message. But then if you send a message to your coach, actually kind of my AI twin or the digital twin of the coach will then already provide like a response. But as a coach, you still need to review and approve that. So this is async. But if you want to have immediate access, then you can also open up the access to the coach chatbot, which is highly trained just on you and your session. And you never get that context window when you use ChatGPT or any kind of other tool. Even if you really customize that, you never have access to what you have with your coach. So this is really like private and very personal to a certain extent.
So actually, there are two questions. First would be, when I'm a coach and I'm being onboarded to the platform, am I doing almost like kind of like we talked about before, about like the knowledge issue of like transferring knowledge from me and some of my colleagues who have been doing this work a long time to a younger generation? As a coach, am I imparting as much of my wisdom, documentation, et cetera, as possible to train that model initially?
Question. No, you don't have to do it initially. You can do it incrementally. So basically we get, I would say, about 80% of your coaching signature, we call it, out of the transcriptions. You do need to have about 3 clients, and each of the clients about 2 to 3 sessions to kind of get to a certain kind of confidence scores. But that 80% basically comes from the transcriptions. There's certain things we can't get from that. things like, for instance, your values, why you choose to do the work. What is your own definition of your signature? How do you position yourself, vis-a-vis your colleagues? So those are certain things. Maybe your accreditation. Quite a few coaches write books or certain kind of thought leader paces. Many of them in our cohort have PhDs and did quite a lot of research. So you can feed that initially, additionally to the transcriptions, and that will actually get you to kind of that extra 20%. But the system works very good for just if you just use the transcriptions. And you can also, we have some sliders on tonality because we operate globally, and we have quite a few people from the UK, and they tend to be a little bit more reserved. And I mean, you've been to London, so you kind of know that's quite a different culture than being the brash New Yorkers that sit within us. So you kind of want to maybe tone it down or tone it up in like directness or other kind of things. So we have a bunch of sliders on kind of tonality that you can trigger as well. But usually the AI picks up by the way you present yourself in the sessions.
That's good, because even like there's the tonality of it, and then there's also like expressionism. Like in the UK, instead of saying like "How's it going," which is a very American expression of like "How are you?" In the UK, they say "You all right? You all right?"
Exactly.
In the States, if you ask somebody if they were all right, like you that means you're like concerned if they're okay. Are you all right?
Exactly.
Like so like
There
with
must be
the
something wrong.
bot.
Yeah.
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 It's just,
100%. Yeah.
no, that's very cool. My second question was, can I purchase just a digital twin license? Like, is there like, you have like this like stable of coaches, and I want like the best one you have. Can I buy his digital twin but not see him as a coach?
No,
Or her,
because
or her.
everything is not now, and I'm not quite sure our strategy goes there, because we want this to be hyper personalized and top tier.
And really and your
Yeah,
customers are the coaches. So it's almost B2B in that
yeah,
sense. Like they're not really a consumer of it. They're ultimately leveraging it for their customers. Got it.
practice.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, so I mean, and it works best if you have like one or two. You don't need to do 10 sessions in
Right.
person, but if you have, right now we kind of see after 3 sessions, enough. So it's kind of an investment you need to make. But on the other end, then you have something hyper personalized that is
Right.
also trained on this body of work, which is seen as top tier in the industry, and then together with that signature of that coach. So you have like 3 layers basically in being super specific. And it stays very dynamic. And this is what happens with, companies like Delphi AI, and they have like digital twins, but it's only built on static content. So if you wrote a book or you have some kind of white paper or whatever, or you talk to it for 2 hours and you dump your entire life story in it, then you of course can have like a good twin. But we very much believe in the continuous development, and seeing that development also back in the way you interact with that twin.
Mhm.
Because when you start a coaching journey, you're quite different if you go through a good journey than when you are, well into the
Right.
whole process, because you develop,
100%.
and having then
Right.
something that stays dynamic and continue to develop with you is as if you are talking to a human coach. But you don't have to in this case, because you've built that digital twin or that knowledge card, and you build together. And this is what we bet on is going to be the key differentiator.
It's very cool. Well, then I will offer, if you need a tester,
Okay.
I'm here. I'm here and
Okay.
available
Great.
to help. And really, it's almost like a reminder. I have to like get another business coach, because it's a long story. I don't have my old business coach anymore, so I'm coachless, and I know I probably shouldn't be at this point in my trajectory as a company. Like, I know there's something I'm probably missing, and so it's just a reminder that I have to like get off my ass and go sort that out. Anyway,
Well, I know quite a few good ones
I
in New
was
York.
just
So
gonna
if you,
say,
yeah, if you would like me, they particularly work with, business owners, and yeah, particularly in the tech space, we have quite a few of those. So yeah, I'm happy to help you.
yeah, I think I'm looking for a dynamic uh, person who's worked in tech, maybe in the past, and ideally maybe with somewhat of a healthcare background, and someone who's familiar with the UK market because we're
Okay.
scaling into the UK and EU. So I think that's probably one of my biggest blind spots, and I have some advisors in that uh, part of the world, but the business coach relationship is just fundamentally different, right? So, but we could talk
Yeah,
offline about that.
of course, no
And
problem.
This has been great, though, Louise. I've learned so much. I mean, I think what you guys are doing is amazing, and I think it's something that specific use case I haven't seen a tool exactly like this, right? So that tells me that you guys are doing something innovative, and that's the kind of thing that we want to showcase here. So thank you so much for taking the time today. And the question we do like to end every episode on is just if you could go back 15, 20, 25 years in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would just say, don't be too serious when you're like in your early 20s. I traveled the world on my own for 2.5 years when I was 20 because I finished business school when I was 19. And was kind of a bet I made with my father. And I said, I want to tour the world when I was 16. He said, well, you have to get a degree first. So I just did something that came naturally to me. And then I learned so much more from traveling. And it was just me with a backpack. I had some jobs. I actually went to Greece, even though I've never been to Greece. And I was a tour guide because I speak 4 languages. So then I had a job as a tour guide. And then I did a season in St. Moritz because I know how to ski and I knew some people. So then I was a ski guide there, made a shitload of money. And then I just traveled the world for 18 months with my backpack in Asia and Australia, New
Wow.
Zealand, and Egypt. And, I learned so much. You build your confidence, you meet super interesting people. This was the time before Instagram. So you were actually present at the moment and not always on your phone looking at other places. So I think that helped too. And yeah, I think, a lot of people, because my last company also had I love to work with young people, but I feel they're so, they're setting themselves so high targets very early on. And it's tough in
Mm,
this world. And I think at the end, if
yeah.
you like enjoy your life and do your self discovery and self development, if you can, I think you just build like stronger bones and healthier brain, and that will come. That's compounding interest, and then you end up in some kind of in the corporate job, or you join like a company like you have an agency, or maybe start a startup. But at least you have seen the world and you see yourself
Right.
in a different world, and I think that's important. So even though I did it myself, this is more of an advice maybe to younger other people. Um, I think maybe the advice for myself is the clarity comes from the doing and not the planning.
Mm,
Like in the beginning, I was a little bit, because I got like in management consulting and I did quite some like important projects, digital like stuff when I was pretty young.
right.
And then I thought, oh, I just need to really prove myself. And I really became like a ultra task manager planner and make sure that nothing falls between the cracks, because you want to do right. And at the end, I think just being there and doing it and enjoying the process, trust the process. I think that's also important. And then it will be all right.
It is. I mean, I feel like that's at the root of innovation is in the doing and the iterating. And I mean, and I love what you said about the young generation and like it's one of the reasons like I aspire for my girls to sooner rather than later. I was talking to my partner about this, like bring them around the world. Like I wasn't super well traveled. My partner, they didn't have a lot of money, but her parents would get them out to back to Latvia or to other places in Europe, and like to be a global citizen and to understand other cultures, and like to dispel the ignorance of like the vastness of the world and the universe in traveling and getting to know like, holy shit, like I didn't even like see that. I just think if I was looking back and giving myself some advice to try to do that earlier, because
Yeah.
even now, as I do that today, like in Istanbul in a week and a half, and everybody's like, oh, my God. And it's just it's a very, very, very cool thing. I'm very grateful. So just great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. And
Glad to
Louise,
give
thank you
it.
so much for participating today and being on. Appreciate you.
Thanks for making the time, David. It was a great conversation.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you all next week.